Good morning. It's September 1st, 2017, and we're here with the newly inducted John Payne, the one-armed bandit, for the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. John, thanks for being here and deserving honor last night.
Well, my pleasure, Pard.
Yes, sir.
This town here, I heard about this town in 1990. Phil Gardenhire told me about the Ellensburg Rodeo.
Sure.
And I said, well, where's it at? And he said, Washington. I said, wow, that's a long ways up there. He said, you got a big act, they got a big arena, you go great. So Phil kind of talked to Buck Miner and some of the old timers that was here and,
Sure.
and got me coming up. And I don't know how many times I've been up here since, but I look forward to it. It's a 3-day drive, but I sure look forward to coming up and staying here. Just like Justin McKee said last night, it's kind of like a family reunion. He's been here 17 years.
Okay, yeah. It just seems like Phil was here, and I know we've lost him some time ago.
Phil died in 1999.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't get to see the millennium. And I remember I went to his funeral, and I was the one that shut the casket on Phil Gardenhire. Mm-hmm. So me and Phil was good friends, and his last rodeo was Columbia, South Carolina. So,
John, tell us your full name, birth date, and birthplace for the record, if you would.
I was born in Shidler, Oklahoma on April the 19th, 1953. John Stephen Payne.
Tell us a little bit about your family's ancestry, your brief family history, John.
We came over on the very first Mayflower. My family, my mother's family came on the very first Mayflower in 1620. And my dad's family came over on the third Mayflower. And we migrated down from the eastern United States, finally ended up in Oklahoma. The father of Oklahoma is named David L. Payne. And my son, I named my son after him. His name's David L. Payne. David L. Payne is known as Father of Oklahoma because he got the land rushes started.
Oh, okay.
And he's some of our relation, cousins of some kind.
Okay.
Looks a lot like us. He was like 6'4", and I'm 6'2". But we got a lot of history in our family.
Sounds like it. Did your people come to Oklahoma as a part of the land rush, or they get there a little before? Or?
That's exactly right. My great-grandpa, H.H. Payne, was living in Raymondville, Missouri, and he heard about the land rush through family. Okay. He walked 350 miles carrying a rifle. And he run in the Sac and Falk land rush and claimed 160 acres and kept it the period of time he was supposed to keep it. And then he sold it. And he knew about the big grass up in northern Oklahoma. And he was a rancher, and he wanted to get up there at that big blue stem.
Okay.
That's what everybody talked about.
Okay.
Right now, your big blue stem will be 3 or 4 foot tall. Huh. And if we get a little more rain, it'll go on up 6 foot. I've delivered cattle before in the fall, and riding horseback through it. Some of it is as tall as my head sitting on a horse. And your saddle's wet in the early morning dew, sure. And your legs are wet just riding through this grass, delivering your cattle. Huh. So I've come from a long line of ranchers. David L. Payne started ranching in northern Oklahoma right around where we live back in the late 1800s. Okay. So I just was a cowboy. And
yeah, it's part of what you are, or who you are, sure.
That's all I am. I'm also part Cherokee Indian. And I always was attracted to tri-colored paint horses.
Okay.
Bay, white, and black. Yeah. And I was always attracted to dark-haired, darker-skinned women. I didn't know why. But I'm a fourth Cherokee.
Sure. Yeah.
So I figured that out after all these years.
Well, tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up. You've told us about your family's background. But...
Childhood, I had 3 older brothers. Okay. And our only form of entertainment back in the early 50s was riding horses. Okay. Had no TV. Sure. I had a radio, but if we was out of the house at daylight and we didn't come back in until dark. Yeah. We rode up and down the creeks and we arrowhead hunted. There was lots of Indians in that area, a lot of flint mines was in that area,
Okay.
a lot of buffalo prior to the white man coming in.
Sure.
Creeks and rivers, and the Indians loved it. So there's artifacts everywhere.
So it's well-watered country, sounds like.
Yes, we don't have to irrigate,
Yeah.
and we don't, you know, our grass don't have to be fertilized or irrigated. It just grows wild. It's called big blue stem. It makes up of about 7 different kinds of grasses. Your switch grass, your Indian plume. There's 7 types of grasses that make our country up. And cattle during the peak season will gain about 3 pounds a day on it.
Holy cow, a pound and a half's good in this
Oh, that'd be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So that's the prairie grass that was undisturbed. It still survives today, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
The plow, you know, back in the Dust Bowl, that's what broke my other great-grandpa, Joe Bush. The Depression hit, and that hurt him. And he owed a lot of money and had a lot of country. And the Depression hit, and then the Dust Bowl hit, and he couldn't survive. So he moved out of there and moved to Salmon, Idaho, and ended up dying up there. And, and that rodeo called me, and I booked a show up just to go see his grave, him and my great-grandmother.
Good
so
for you.
It was nice.
I bet. What, a question most folks are curious about, when you were 20, you lost your arm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I lost my arm when I was 20, but since then I've lost my arm several other times. I was cleaning the trailer out the other day, and my arm was squeaking and rattling, and something go plump, and I looked around, and my bottom half of my arm fell off.
Oh.
And it also fell off during a show one time. And I saw something in my background, and it was my sleeve flopping, and I didn't even know I'd lost my arm. But everybody asked me how I lost my arm and when I lost my arm. I always say, well, which time? But the first time it happened, I was electrocuted. I grabbed a hold of 7,200 volts, which I thought was dead. And once you grab a hold of it, they say you can't turn loose. But if you hang on to it long enough, it'll burn your fingers off and you can turn loose.
You're loose. Huh.
So you just got to hang on to it for about 10 seconds. But during that 10 seconds, it cooked my arm. And I had to cut it off right here. And when it come through me, it blew my guts out my side. So on the way to the hospital, after receiving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, I had to hold my guts in on the way to the hospital. And finally, when I got where I could see, after about 30 minutes, I wasn't blind, but when I would look, I'd see 30 or 40 of everything. So I just shut my eyes. And I was sitting there like this on the way to the hospital. And I was holding my guts in. And once I got close to the hospital, I looked at my leg, and you could see the thigh bone for about 10 inches. It burnt my leg plumb to the bone. So there's a real big scar here, and this here goes plumb to the bone. So when they come in one day and said, today we're going to ream your guts out and kind of patch that up where they don't fall out. And we're going to cut your arm off right here. And then we're going to cut your leg off right here. I said, now wait a minute.
You go 2 out of 3. But
I said, now wait a minute now. That's a lot of surgery. I said, let's leave the leg on. I think I can save it. You can have the arm. And they said, well, do you want to live or die? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you got infection. Infection kills people. If we don't cut that arm off and your leg off, there's a real good chance you'll die. And I said, well, I know I'm a cowboy, and if I do live, I'm going to be riding horses. And I've not seen very many one-legged people ride horses very good. So I said, leave the leg on. They said, well, it might save your life if we cut it off. And I said, well, I want to leave the leg on, I'll take my chances. So they argued with me 4 times. Right before surgery, I told them how I would kill them if they cut my leg off. And I was serious.
Sure.
I said, guys, it's my leg, it's my life. I'm a cowboy. I'm going to be riding horses if I'm alive. You leave the leg on at all costs.
This is the early 70s, I guess?
No, sir. That was, yes, sir, it was. 1973.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got electrocuted June the 12th, 1973, about 2 o'clock.
What type of medical facilities? Did they take you to Oklahoma City or to a bigger town, or what?
They took me to Ponca City, and they immediately started IVs, which was good. And they said, we can't do nothing to this guy. He's really messed up. You got to send him to Tulsa Burn Center. They didn't have Save Your Life helicopter. Oh. And I've always had a lot of humor in my life and make jokes and crack up a lot. And it just, you know, aggravates my wife because I give everybody heck all the time. So after I got to the hospital, they brought a gurney out there to the pickup, and they was hauling me into the emergency room. And the nurse was walking real fast right alongside me with a clipboard. Said, Mr. Payne, I have to know what you're allergic to. And I'd already accepted death because I'd looked at myself and I'm thinking, there's no way I can live through this. Fingers were burnt through and flipped backwards. And you could see the thigh bone. My guts would fall out if you didn't hold them in. So I thought, well, I've got about 2 hours to live. And so she said, what are you allergic to? And I said, electricity makes me break out a bit. And she didn't crack a smile. I figured she'd laugh, but she didn't crack a smile. And she said, your life depends on this question. What are you allergic to?
There's a lady that was serious about her job, John.
She sure was. Yeah. So 20 years later, 25 years later, I went to a friend's funeral. And here come this good-looking woman up to me. She said, you don't remember who I am, do you? I said, no, I don't. I said, I wished I did, but I just can't remember you. She said, I'm the nurse that you said electricity makes me break out a bit.
Made an impression on her, didn't you?
She said, I've never forgot that. I think about that all the time. She'll periodically come over to my daughter's restaurant and eat steaks on Saturday night and tell a story. I've heard it 100 times. Oh, but I always, she said, there you were staring death in the face and you still cracking jokes.
Were you, was that your nature prior to the accident? Must have been.
Oh, I was always, you know, I was always cracking jokes. In the 7th grade one time, Mrs. Stebler said, Mr. Payne, if you want to entertain the class, just get up here on my desk and entertain the class. She never said that again. I was up there, you know, like this.
Two-arm bandit at that time, folks, but he was still the bandit.
That's right. Yeah. She never said that again. She sent me to the office. He said, what are you in here for? And I said, I don't know. She came in there and said, he got up on top of my desk and just, huh? He got up on top of my desk and started dancing and all this stuff, acting silly. And I said, she told me to.
That's it.
Well, now, wait a minute. You told him, you know. So I went back to the room and they sat in there and argued it out.
Besides Mrs. 7th grade teacher's classroom, were you a performer as a young person? Did you?
I was always entertaining the class. I was very entertaining.
Okay.
I got spankings every year in school for entertaining the class.
Okay, yeah.
When I hit the 1st grade, I got 5 or 6 spankings. And I remember in the 2nd grade, I went there and got a big drink of water. And one of my friends go, and I just go right on Joy Franks. He spit on me. And I said, well, I didn't spit on him. Well, I got my butt spanked for that too.
Spanking coming for that. When did rodeo become a part of your life? Was it from the get-go, or did you?
No, it wasn't the
family
get-go.
a part of it, or?
None of my family rodeoed.
Your ranch people, I know. But
right, but none of us rodeoed.
Yeah.
We worked daylight to dark on a ranch.
Got it. Yep.
And 7 days a week. I'd go to rodeos and watch the bronc riding. I broke colts all my life.
Okay.
And I said, hell, I could have rode that bronc. And somebody said, won't you enter the bronc riding? And I said, well, I guess I will. So I had one arm cut off. And I just said, I'm just going to enter the bronc riding and the bareback riding. So I did, and I did that periodically for about 4 years.
This was after your accident?
That's after this arm got cut off.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember a pickup man coming over to the chute, and he says, "Which side am I going to pick you up on?" And I said, "Well, I ain't got but one side," just like Rick Cole mentioned last night. I said, "I ain't got but one side." I said, "If you can't figure out which side to pick me up, just get the heck out of the way. I'll jump off."
Yeah.
So then I started gathering wild cattle for a living.
Okay.
I'd go to Florida and Georgia and New Mexico, and I've been to about 8 or 10 different states gathering wild cattle. And most of the time I got half of what I could catch.
That was how they paid you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was paid several different ways. It just depends on the people. But the real bad cattle that nobody could catch, they'd give me half of what I caught. And I had these blackmouth cur dogs that I had them well trained, and they could track and trail and wind and go in there and find these cattle. And I could, what I'd do is park my trailer back in the boonies somewhere and unhook the truck and trailer, and I'd find the cattle and I'd drive them to it, and I'd circle that trailer until they jumped in. Then I'd shut the gate and I'd back my truck up to it and I'd take them home. Or I'd drive them 2 or 3 miles across the timber into a pen or something rather, just several different ways. And it depends on how many, if there's only one or whatever. But that's what led me into the rodeo arena.
That was the beginning of the One-Armed Bandit
Right.
Act, yeah.
Walter Allsbaugh come to Ponca City and wanted to buy some bulls, and they said, "Them Paynes out there got some of the baddest bulls there is. They come out of the Florida jungles." So Walter come out to look at them, and he come out to look at them, and Dad was pretty sharp. You didn't pin these bulls without dogs, and they had to be good dogs. So Dad said, "Yeah, I'll sell these bulls to you for $1,000 a piece." Walter Allsbaugh said, "Well, I'll give you 900 and take them all." There was like 25 of them.
Okay.
So Dad said, "Well, if you're going to give me down to 900, you just pin them yourself." Walter said, "Hell, we can pin bulls. We've done this all of our lives." So he said, "Well, when the check clears the bank, you can come and get your bulls." So they didn't get along very good. They pinned one bull, and the phone rang, and Dad said, "John, what are you doing in the morning?" I said, "Probably pinning them dang bulls."
Sounds like.
So
Ended up 1,000 a pop, huh?
no. I pinned the bulls, and then I went to the rodeo to watch them buck.
Oh, okay.
And there was an act there that was really bland. It was an old Civil War reenactment show. And it was bland. And Walter Allsbaugh walked by, and I said, "Boy, that act sucked, Walter." And he said, he turned around and come over. He said, "Well, we'll just let you be the entertainment next year." He was still a little bit resentful for me going out there and pinning all them bulls, and him and all his hands couldn't.
Probably was.
And when he asked what he could do to help, I said, "Well, you did all you could yesterday. Just stay out of the way." And I, by myself, with my dogs, pinned the bulls. So he knew I was kind of talented.
Sure.
So where I was pinning the bulls inside the trailer at different places, what I was going to do was that at the rodeo.
Okay.
But that got easy. So I built me a ramp on top of my trailer and started putting them on top of the trailer, and that was my act.
Okay.
I went to Ponca City and did 3 performances, never got paid, never got thanked, never got nothing. Of course,
Walter
it was just a dare.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, "We'll let you be the entertainment."
Yeah.
There was no money ever discussed.
This would have been
1987.
late 80s, okay, yeah. Yeah.
And I was flat broke and owed $100,000. I built my first trailer, and my first pickup I bought off my brother for $800 and took a year and a half to pay him back. I was broke. I'd fed cattle in the feedlot, and I had 2 or 3 years back to back. It was bad. Interest rate was almost 23%.
Yeah.
I was flat broke, living with my grandmother. Had the house taken away, land taken away, and we was broke. I started that rodeo act. It took me 12 years to pay that money back plus interest. And
That right there tells a lot about John Payne to me.
Well, there was a lot of people filed bankruptcy.
Sure, yeah.
And if I had any sense at all, I would have, because I would have been so much farther ahead. But that's a form of giving up.
Yeah.
And I don't give up. So I said, no, I said I'd pay you back, and I will. I just didn't say exactly when. And they said, you know you hadn't made a payment in 6 months? And I said, well, I'm quite aware of that.
Yeah, trying to eat.
And he said, won't you go to town and get you a job and start paying us our money back? And I said, who the heck going to hire a one-armed man? Two-armed guys ain't even got jobs. I said, just be patient. You'll get your money.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, I'll pay you. Took 12 years of rodeoing. So I'd banked with that bank for 50 years. I started when I was 7 years old. The Payne Brothers Cattle Company.
Yes, sir.
And everything went south, and I lost everything. But I never gave up.
Stuck together.
It bothered my wife. It didn't bother me none.
Yeah.
Life is like a game of Monopoly. And it's up and down, up and down. And it's not what happens to you, it's how you recover and go on with it after it happens. So, like my arm.
People that come back from the dead think like that, I guess.
Right.
I mean,
You know, my arm, one-armed bandit. Who can forget one-armed bandit? When I go to rodeo, they say, how'd you like John Payne? I said, who? And they said, the one-armed bandit. Oh, wow, he was great. So the name one-armed bandit was asset.
Sure. Yeah.
Losing the arm become an asset. I'm the most recognizable person in the PRCA and the only one-armed person in the PRCA.
Probably, yeah.
And so, you know.
So we're 1987, you took the dare at Ponca City. Obviously it was a hit, or the crowd liked it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, they'd never seen anything like it.
No, and so where did we go from there? Did you go to the convention the next winter?
I sure did. I sold my mailbox, my washer and dryer, my TV antenna, my satellite. I sold everything out of that house and made a payment on a pickup. I took the pickup to the PRCA convention and bought me a card. Clem McSpadden and Walter Allsbaugh signed for me, and I went and set up in the announcer's room. And they said, what are you doing in here? Are you an announcer? And I said, no, but I could be, I guess. They said, well, you're a specialist. That's over in the other room. So I go over there. I mean, I was just really green.
Pretty green, yeah.
That was in 1988. I joined the PRCA, and Walter Allsbaugh was so impressed with my show, he gave me 90 performances. Of course, he wanted to pay $250, and I said, I'll take $300 a performance.
Sure.
Well, at the end of the year, I lost $8,000 because I was working too cheap.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I talked to my wife. I said, well, Judy, that wasn't very good. She said, well, it's a lot better than we did the year before in cattle. I said, well, yeah, but we're still going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I went up to 500, then went up and went up. Finally, I got where I could make some money.
Okay.
But I clawed and scraped and worked my way to the top. And I'm the 15-time Entertainer of the Year now.
Bought your car in '88. When did the One-Armed Bandit Act become sought after, and when was your first Entertainer of the Year award?
1989.
There you go.
I won it for 8 years in a row.
You bet.
And I'm the man that says what I think, and I just can't help it. I don't back down, and I don't shut up. I mean, I might muffle myself, but if it's black, it's black, and if it's gray, it's gray, and if it's white, it's white. And some people can't take the truth. And I told a guy that was very important and very dominant in the PRCA office in Rodeo Spring, or in Colorado Springs. I told him what I thought. He didn't like it very good. I won Act of the Year for 8 years in a row. After I did that, the next year, I was not even nominated. I didn't even make the top 5.
Welcome to the world of politics.
I was blackballed for 12 years. They'd nominate me, but I never would win. And those were some of my best years. So karma has a way of coming around and biting people like that, and a lot of bad things happen. And after that, after 12 years, when we got rid of him, I won Act of the Year for 4 years in a row. And he later come back and apologized to me. And I said, well, you didn't fool nobody. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And so I'm still won 15 times, which is 5 times more than anybody else has ever won.
Name the next most popular PRC act. I'm trying to think of who that might be.
Well, there's not very many PRCA acts anymore because a lot of them get starved out and a lot of them can't survive having weeks off.
Sure.
And I can survive. My foundation is solid as cement. And I'm also in the cattle business again.
Okay.
And, you know, I played poker for 4 years for a living. And if I would have quit rodeo and then started playing poker in that World Poker Tour, I would even be more famous because I'm a heck of a good poker player. And I made enough money in 4 years of gambling that I planned a 3-month trip to Alaska. Bought me a new truck, new rifle, and planned a 3-month hunting trip. And went.
Good for you.
And had money when I came back. But I've lived a pretty exciting life. I mean, that's just the way I live. It's exciting.
Like, yeah. I don't know if fearless is the appropriate word, but the fear of the everyday fears that a lot of people have don't seem to.
Well, see, I would say fearless is the word.
Okay.
Because I was going to be an airplane pilot, and I'd already bought 3 books, and just a few days after my first lesson, I got killed. So the Great Spirit knew that I was fearless and that I would be driving this airplane upside down under highline wires and everything else. So the Great Spirit stepped in and stopped that from happening and helped me become a rodeo entertainer. And all this is in the plan the way I see it. I was too fearless to be an airplane pilot because I used to race motorcycles. Before I got my arm cut off, I raced motorcycles. And when I got my arm cut off, I came home, kept my bikes. I just welded a bar underneath there, took the throttle over here and put it over here. Instead of pulling back, you push forwards. And I went ahead and raced bikes like that anyway, with one arm. And I finally got me a hand and poked it in here and held onto that bar.
Okay.
And I put gloves on, and nobody knew I had one arm. And I'd rear it up and ride it on the hind wheel. One day my grandpa came in the driveway and I seen him coming, so I just pulled it up on the hind wheel and just passed him, doing about 30 on the hind wheel. When we went by, I went like that to him, lost my concentration, and the bike came over, and I throwed the bike away and jumped for my life, but I forgot I was hooked on.
Oh.
And to unhook it, you had to go like this, and that would open the hand, okay, like that, and then you go like this, it'd open the hand. That's how it worked. Well, I forgot to go like that in the middle of a wreck, and it broke my strap and tore my arm off, the sleeve and everything, and last I seen, the motorcycle just flipping and rolling, this arm still hung on the bar. So that's another time I lost my arm.
Yeah, that's it. Well, bring us to the Ellensburg Rodeo. That was the early 1990s?
I think it was 1992.
Okay.
One of the performances, my horse slipped and fell off the side of the trailer. And he was coming upside down on top of me. And that saddle horn, I could just feel that son of a gun going to hit me right in the chest, and it was going to not be good. He weighed about 1,200 pounds, 1,150, and oh, it was bad. I've got a picture of the horse falling upside down on top of me. I hit the ground, and I spun and rolled like a alligator would on death row, and I rolled under that trailer just as that saddle brushed me. Horse fell, got up, I crawled up from under the trailer and jumped on him and showed everybody me and him was all right, and went up there and finished the show. And you talk about a standing ovation.
That was the introduction to the Catas Valley of the one-armed bandit. Yeah.
The first rodeo I ever did was Ponca City, and the third performance it started raining. all I had was rock crusher belting on top of my trailer. Slicker than heck when it got wet.
Yeah.
We fell off.
Oh, be darned.
And the first phone call I got was, "Are you that one-armed guy that jumps the horse off the trailer?"
Good for business, bad for your health.
I said, "Well, I'm the one-armed guy, but we fell off trailer. We don't jump off trailer." But we started out at -0, and you know, we clawed and scratched, and just like I tell everybody, I said, I was once broke and owed 100,000, and now I'm a millionaire. They said, "Are you a millionaire?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got 1 million friends, and each one of them loan me $1, so I'm a millionaire."
There you go.
And I stole that off of Jim Shoulders, the 16-time world champion, an Okie friend of mine.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of good old Okies.
Well, yeah, the Texans think they're the king of the Cowboys these days, but it seems like that Oklahoma country really.
Oklahoma and Texas
Yeah.
used to dominate. There was a few good guys from New Mexico and different places, and a lot of good Cowboys from up in here. But them Okies and Texans, you know, when rodeo started, they were just rodeo cowboys on a ranch, and they just moved it to town.
Party, yeah, your story about gathering wild cattle. I mean, it was what you did, and you turned it into a rodeo act, yeah.
I was challenged. I've been challenged many times since then. I saw some Wrangler bullfights going on up in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I said, "You ought to sell them old bulls to me, and I'll put them on top of my trailer." And old Jim Sutton said, "There ain't no way in heck you do that. These bulls will kill you. To move them, we have to put a panel on a tractor with a bucket and move them like that." And I said, "All you gotta do is worry about spending the money. You ain't gotta worry about me." So I bought them, and he said, "If you put these bulls on top of a trailer and bring them back to Rapid City in 2 years, I'll give you your normal pay plus a $1,000 bonus." 2 years I went back and collected the $1,000 bonus and my pay. And then he said, "We're having a buffalo sale. If you buy some buffaloes, we make you the same deal. If you bring these buffaloes back to this rodeo in Rapid City, South Dakota," and that's where they also had the sale at. I said, "Still mouthing off, are you?" So I bought them, and I was back there in 2 years, and one more time I had to remind them, "What about that $1,000 bonus?" He said, "Oh, heck. Julie, give him that extra 1,000. He says,
Yeah.
"I'm going to have to quit mouthing off, I guess."
That was the last deal at Jim Sutton.
Right. So then, since then, I went ahead and started training zebras and Z-donks and Zorsers. They said they couldn't be trained. I said, "Well, anything can be trained." And I always throw this in because I'm a smart aleck. I once trained a woman. Now that'll get you in trouble saying that.
You got the camera still, Jerry?
I once trained a woman to do whatever she wanted to do, whenever she wanted to do it.
Come here, pup. Come here. No, get out of here, pup. Get out of here.
Oh, that raised a few eyebrows, but I'm a man that speaks my mind, and always with a little humor in it, and no disrespect to the
And
woman.
a gentleman around women. I
You
can
dang
sense that
right.
about you. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I've been around a lot of people that drank a little too much beer or whiskey at the rodeos. You'll never see me nothing but a gentleman at all times, and I don't care if I had 2 or 3 drinks. And you'll never see me tipsy. I might have a smile on my face, but no, I don't go there.
Yeah.
There's some things I don't do. But I was fortunate to have parents that raised me up right and taught me respect. And I had a heck of a head start just by having good parents. And they wasn't afraid to spank your butt either. And I raised my kids the same way, and my daughter raised her kids the same way. And that's just what we believe in. We believe that, you know, I believe in one, you know, I know we're in school here, but I believe it's better to give them 1 too many spankings than 1 not enough. Look at some of these people around this United States nowadays are rioting and putting all this black stuff on where you can't see their face and burning, and we didn't have none of that when we was growing up. world's kind of upside down. And, you know, it's just like trying to break a dead-gum old horse that's 7 or 8 years old. Get them when they're young. Bring your kids up right from the start, and you won't be going and getting them out of jail and going to see them in prison if you bring them up right. I just don't agree with the, you know, I think they need to be disciplined. And if they're not disciplined, you're going to have trouble.
That philosophy carries over to your training of animals.
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
I grew my kids up, and I trained my horses, and I train all my animals all the same way. Here's the line, don't step over it. We all know that. And if you step over it, repercussions going to hit you. So my kids never been in any trouble. They don't do drugs. They yes sir, no sir. And they're fine people. And I never had to spank. I spanked my son once, maybe twice. Spanked my daughter maybe once or maybe twice in their lives. I could just clear my throat and look at them, and they'd straighten right up.
They do, yeah.
And if we went to town, they wasn't grabbing everything. Daddy, daddy, daddy. I want all this. They just quietly walk through there, and I'd say, hey, grab that for me. They didn't ask for nothing. And when they got up a little older and they wanted something, I said, well, you got the money? They said, well, no, not really. I said, well, I guess you can't buy it then. If you want money, you come to me and ask me what you can do to earn money. Sure. You'll get $3 an hour, and you'll keep your own hours. Yeah. And if you turn in more hours than I think it took for you to do that, it all goes away and we start over. So don't be cheating, Dad. Yeah. But I will pay you for everything you do. Sure. They have to have money. Yeah. And they'd come to me and said, what can I do? And I said, well, weeds down there around that chute needs cut, chopped. I want to paint this fence. I want to do this. And go pick up rocks in the pasture.
It's not complicated.
Go pick up rocks in the pasture and put them in ditches. I kept my kids busy, and they got paid for it because they had to have money, and I didn't buy them nothing. When they wanted a horse or a pickup, I'd say, well, that's fine. And what I did was paid my kids money every time they worked for me. And then I turned right around and tried to beat them out of every dime they had. And the wife said, John, you just cheated your son. I said, somebody's going to cheat him. He might as well learn from me.
That's it. There's going to be more.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I got, I know once, but I got my daughter and I got my son. I said, I bet I can hit that trash can from here. And they said, well, I bet you $1 you can't. I just throw it and hit the side of it. Get my $1.
It didn't go in. Well, I hit it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But I was all the time trying to cheat them out of their money because they have to learn.
Sure.
And you can't cheat them out of their money nowadays. And anything they own, they deserved it because they bought it, they worked for it, and they bought it. And I bought a pickup for $1,000, sold it to Lynn for $1,500. He found out about it. I said, I got to make money too. Well, he sold it to his little sister for $2,500.
Oh.
And then my little sister drove it for everybody drove it 2 or 3 years, and then she sold it. She turned around and sold it for, I think, $3,500.
Got the last laugh.
It was a 1970 short wheelbase Chevy pickup, canary yellow, and everybody that touched that pickup made money, but everybody paid for that pickup. So that's just how we did business, and that's how I grew up, and that's how I learned how to act. Now, I've always been a little ornery, but I can't help that. That evidently filtered down through my dad and my grandpa and all my relatives before me. They put some orneriness in me. Sure. But I'm also the type of guy that works from daylight to dark. If I'm home, I work from daylight to dark. I find me something to do. I'm sitting up there early in the morning at 4:30, drinking coffee, and I'm making me list. Okay. Prioritize my list. Sure. This has to be done. Okay. And I go, whew, whew, whew. And if it's too hot when I'm home to work, hot and sweaty, and people's in the air conditioner taking naps, not me. I got a pool out there. I dive in this pool, all my clothes on. I take my boots off, and put some kind of rubbery slippers on, and then I go mow, or I go brush hog, or I go feed the dogs, or I go work. And when my clothes completely dry, and I'm starting to get hot again, I dive in the pool again.
Okay.
I work all through that heat, and I'm not a man to ever use any excuses, and don't want to hear no excuses. That's just how I'm put together.
The way you're put together and what you see when you come to the Catas Valley and the Ellensburg Rodeo, do you see any similarities, or is there?
Well, what I'm impressed with, I've not seen any arguments in the committee, the Ellensburg Rodeo Committee. And when I come here, they treat me like a brother. And what can we do to help? And class is the word I like to use. A lot of class here, a lot of historical knowledge has been passed down, and everybody does their part and they do it well. That's why you got full house every day. And just like I said last night, people ask me, well, what's your favorite rodeo? And I said, well, it's awful hard to beat Ellensburg. Full house, everybody makes money, everybody does their job. The hay's here, the water's there, the track and everything is worked up good, no dust. It's just professionalism from start to finish. And I said, there can't be a better rodeo than Ellensburg. There might be some just as good,
Sure.
because you got a lot of good old country people everywhere you go. There's a little nest egg of good old country people that does the right thing and works together to make it better for the citizens of the community and give the citizens something to look forward to every year. Make money, have fun, and then go back to work. That's just a good way to do it. And I don't have a favorite rodeo. But I'll tell you what, you just can't be a better rodeo than Ellensburg. So that's how I see it. Like Justin McKee said, like homecoming. It's just a long ways to come. Like I said, a 3-day drive if you don't have any trouble at all.
Yeah. Do you, your entire act fits in the trailer that you use in the
Right.
act? Okay.
And we have 5 of those rigs. My son uses one, I use one, the daughter uses one, then we have a backup rig. We used to have 2 backup rigs, and we used to have 4 rigs on the road. I would have a nephew do a show. And there was times we had all 5 rigs on the road. And there was times I'd get a phone call, well, my rear end's out, my engine blew, my transmission's out. I'm thinking, oh boy, you got to be at the rodeo in 2 days. And boy, the money would fly out of the pocketbook. Sure. I don't mind having 3 rigs on the road at the same time, but if your life starts being stressful, and sometimes it's not worth all the extra money you make by all the extra things you do. My uncle once told me, don't ever become possessed by your possessions. And I thought about that a lot. And the older I get, the more I want to go home and sell every dang thing I got that causes me any anguish, that causes me any discomfort, that causes me have to work more and more. You know, I'm 64, and I'm thinking, why do I have to work so hard? Why do I need all this? Why do I need all that? And the older I get, I'm thinking, I'm going to sell that, I'm going to sell that, I'm going to sell that, I'm going to sell that. More time with just a family, sure. And I don't have to work that hard anymore. Yep. So, you know, you can learn something from everybody. Sometimes you learn things that you don't want to do. And my grandmother always told me, she said, well, you'll always have time to do what you want to do. And my other grandmother, I'd say, good night, grandmother. No, I called her Over, because back when I was a kid, we couldn't say grandmother, we said Over. Mm-hmm. So I called her Over. I said, night, Over. I'll see you in the morning. She said, I sure hope you do. And she'd get up the next morning. She says, I'm so tired. She said, I guess I'm getting old because I went to bed early and got up late and I'm still tired. So I've had a lot of good people before me that I could learn from.
Sure.
And
you're sharing that with your
My dad died the other day. It was April the 19th, my birthday. And
Of this year?
yes, he was 90, and one of the last things he told me before I had to leave to go to a rodeo out in California, I knew he was dying, so I had to say goodbye to him.
Sure.
And that was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life, saying goodbye to your dad,
Sure.
and knowing you're not going to be there when he dies. Well, he died on my birthday, which is an honor to me.
Sure.
That's what meant to be, and that's what happened. Yeah. But I came home, and we buried him on his birthday.
I'll be darned.
And one of the last things he told me, he said, well, I'm 90. You expect me to live forever? And then another one of the things he told me, I remember right a few days before he died, he turned and looked at me, had one eye shut and one eye open real big. He said, you remember, family comes first. You know, so that was that's something I'll never get over, because me and Dad was real close. And just lucky to have that step up in life when I started by having real good parents that did the right thing. Dad bought and paid for close to a 4,500 acre ranch. He bought it, worked daylight to dark his whole life, and he paid for that ranch. And just a couple of years ago, he gave it to us boys. There's 5 of us boys. And he was real proud of his accomplishments, and wasn't no bragger. But I bragged for him a lot.
Sure.
I said all he did was work daylight to dark for 80 years, and he paid for this ranch and give it to us boys, and always trying to help us. And the other day it was dry. Ponds were half empty. It was dry. I was getting ready to order some feed for my cattle. I looked up in the sky and I said, Dad, I know you're up there watching, and I know you're up there where the rain is made. I said, can you please send us 5 or 6 inches of rain? He sent 10.
Doubled it up on you.
He sent 10, filled all the ponds up, flushed out the creeks. The grass went to growing. And I said, thank you, Dad. I said, you always was pretty generous.
Sounds like. Yeah.
So,
You're describing what you identified earlier in our interview, John, as good old country people. It seems like people that are working hard, trying to do the right thing.
do the right
We
thing.
all have flaws, but
We all have flaws.
accept those or don't accept those. Work to improve upon those.
Dad always said, if you work daylight to dark every day of your life, you're going to eventually do some things right.
There you
And you're going to eventually have something. Bad luck can't pull that kind of man down. So, that's what I do, work daylight to dark, and there's days that if I'd laid in bed all day and done nothing, I would have been a heck of a lot better off, because that broke down, that caught on fire, that got a broken leg. I said, God, when is it going to quit? But if you work daylight to dark 7 days a week all your life, you're bound to have some good luck. And that's what he did, and that's how he paid for this ranch. He had no education. He had no gas. He had no oil. He had no inheritance. He bought the land that his dad had off of him so his dad could retire. And Dad was given nothing. And I don't want nothing. There's people that does things for me all the time, won't charge me. I said, no, I'll buy you dinner, or I'll fill your truck up with fuel. Nobody works for me for nothing. And I'm the kind of guy that does not want nothing for free, because I don't feel like I earned it. I want to earn everything I get. And if I don't earn it, I don't want it. Doing a show for a bunch of Indians up in South Dakota, and I've seen some pretty paints I liked. And I said, you got 50 of these beautiful horses. I said, would you sell me 3 of them? Dean Yellowhawk said, I give you 3 horses. Just take 3 horses. I give them to you. I said, no. No, I ain't gonna give him. You ain't gonna give him to him. So I reached my pocket and I gave him a check for $1,000. And you know, that was kind of cheap. But he would have given to me, but no, I gave him a check for $1,000, and then I picked 3 horses out and took them home and trained them, and brought them back to his rodeo the next year. And my daughter put on a show with them, and he just loves that, and he'll hire us to come back and bring those paints. And I went and bought 10 of them here about 3 months ago, and oh no, I give these horses to you. No. He said, you put them in the show, you make them look good. I said, I'll put them in the show and I'll make them look good, and I'll pay you for your horses. Because I want to cover my tracks everywhere I go, and I want to pay for everything I go, and I want to earn everything I got. And I don't want nothing for free. And another thing that irks me is to see trash laying down on Mother Earth. That just irks me. When I'm traveling across the country, that right side of my floorboard will be knee deep in coffee cups, candy bars, chips, hot dog wrappers, whatever I've ate. And then when I get somewhere, I'll go get a trash can, I'll pull it all, and I'll put it all in there.
Won't be alongside the road.
Dang right, and it will not. I don't throw trash down on Mother Earth. So.
John, your business card probably says something about animal trainer or performer, but it's obvious that you're in the people business. I mean, you're
Well, if you live long enough, you'll learn people too.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of closing words do you have for the people of the Ellensburg community in the Catas Valley? What can you share with us?
Well, be proud of what your forefathers have accomplished. And just like my forefathers, they've made life a lot easier for me, and I've learned from them. Take time and spend some time with your family. Be grateful for what you have. Be thankful. And don't rush to judge. Give people some time. And have patience with your fellow man. And remember, they might not be having a perfect day either. They might not be having a perfect life. There might be reasons why they're acting like they're acting. And, just kind of stay even-tempered and have patience with your fellow man, and walk in their shoes before you criticize them. Because a lot of times people act a certain way because they're having tragedies in their life and you don't even know about it. So just have some patience with everybody.
Well said. Folks, a 2017 Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame inductee, John Payne. John, thank you, the one-armed bandit.
My pleasure, you betcha.